Hi, I'm Steven. What am I doing? Today I'm going to put together some Adirondack chairs I bought from a big box store. These chairs arrived in a large box and require a little bit of assembly. As you see, it says adult assembly required. Hopefully I can qualify. Let's open it up and see what's inside. Getting everything out, we see what we're dealing with. It's already partially assembled. This is the back. That over there is the seat. These are the arms, the rear and the front braces, and these are the legs for the front. If you know anything about these particular kind of chairs, the bottom of the seat, or the back of the seat area there, that acts as the back leg. And then of course we have our all-important hardware and instructions. So let's take a look at those. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I'm a big proponent of actually looking at the instructions. Sometimes when you read reviews online, you'll find people who complain about how hard it was to assemble, or that they had to drill holes because things didn't line up. Most of the time, my experience is they didn't follow the instructions. So first, look at what we have. It identifies the pieces that should be included: the seat, the backrest, the front leg, armrest, the long brace in the front, the rear brace for the back, some bolts, an additional bolts, and an Allen wrench for putting it together. And then if we look on the inside, it begins to tell us the steps. So that's what we'll do now. As I said, from my experience, when things go wrong, most of the time it's from not checking that you have everything before you begin, and then not following the instructions. So let's empty out the hardware and see what we're looking at. So it's you'll notice that we have a series of bolts. There should be 14 of this style according to the number, and 2 of these longer ones with the drive points on the end. And this is our Allen wrench for assembly. You'll see all the heads are hex heads. Now, if you have a power tool with the appropriate head and want to try to use that, I would suggest that you do it slow. Don't have it on the highest speed, and use caution, because a lot of these things can be overpowered. This particular model of chair is made from recycled plastic parts. I chose this because I think it's durable. It's also treated to not fade as much in the sun as say wood that is stained will. And I'm hopeful that because of this material, it'll be less likely to take on mold and certainly won't rot. Step number 1 has us attaching the front legs, labeled with C, to the seat using the bolts G. Now if we go back and we look, we'll see that bolts G are the 2-inch bolts, of which we have 14. So we don't want to use the wrong bolts. On the instructions, it's important to notice how things are laid out. So if you look at this diagram, you'll see that this outside leg has the little brace, the L brace for the arm to fit on, at the front. So you need to make sure that when you're lining up your legs, that you have them facing the right way. If you don't, you might put this one on this way, but notice the brace is at the back. That's not where it wants it. So this brace goes on the other side of the seat, and this brace is the one that goes on this side. Now, then following the instructions, we see it has us putting the screws in from the outside, going into the seat area. Now, because you have to go through this material, it's pre-drilled, it has holes, but it's going to be a snug fit. So it's okay to go ahead on a flat surface and get your screws started where they need to be, so that way you'll have your one hand can hold it while the other hand is working on the pieces. Otherwise, you might need 3 hands. All right. Now, they did give us an Allen wrench. The Allen wrench can be used to tighten these down. They're obviously going to be a lot easier going at before it goes through the material. Further it goes in, and especially once it starts into the seat area, it's going to be a little tougher drive. So as I said, if you have a power tool that has an appropriate drive on it, you can use that. You don't want to drive them all the way through yet, because that might make it harder lining it up. Now, once you have those started, not coming through yet, you want to make sure you take your brace, and again, you have it on the correct side. So this is the side that needs to be facing out. It's going to go on this side of the chair. You'll see there are pre-drilled holes to receive the screws as they go through. So once you start to drive these through, you'll be able to line those up on the holes and then attach it the way that it needs to be. So let's drive these a little further until they're just peeking through. Let's do. That'll do. So you see, I just have them peeking through, and that will help me line it up on the holes that I need to drive further in. So once you have it in the holes, it will kind of sit down like that. You heard it snap, and then we can drive these in further. Now you'll notice I like to do mine a little bit at a time. Don't snug one all the way down before you start moving the other one. Otherwise, it can be difficult to adjust anything if you have to. So once you get it, then you snug it down. Remember, if you are using a power tool, don't overdrive it. This particular material is plastic. If you have a wood one, it's got the same potential problem. If you overdrive these, now you've causing the screw to spin inside the material. It's not going to have the hold that you need. So you just want them down good and snug. And if you're not sure, you can always go back to your Allen wrench at the end to make your final adjustments. Just make sure you get it good and snug. After you've had it out for a few days, sat in it a few times, you might want to take your Allen wrench and go back and check the screws anyway, because it's possible once you put weight on it, it wobbles a little bit. They might loosen a little bit, so you want to snug them down, but you shouldn't have to do that more than once. Now let's put the arm on the other side. Again, you'll see I made them poke out just a little, just enough that I can line them up on these holes and then finish driving. There we go. We attach the brace, and it makes sure to say use the long brace. One is longer than the other in the front, using the same G screws. So let's do that. The instructions tell us to use the long brace in the front, and it's labeled E. If for some reason your labels have come off, the easiest way to tell, of course, is to stand them on end, and you'll see that one is longer than the other. But I still have my labels E, so I'm going to use this one. I'll put F aside for later. The long brace fits between here and here. So you'll see, because I've already put this piece on, this doesn't quite fit, but you should be able to put enough tension on it to where you can get it through. Now we have the same issue that we're going to have to go ahead and start this screw before we line it up so that we can get it to line up on the hole. Otherwise, we're just eyeballing it and we're not sure. This is where we get into situations where people say, I had to drill it and stuff like that. But I think if you put your screw through part of the way so that it just has a nubbing sticking out the end, you'll be able to fit this over the hole and then get the screw to settle into it so you can finish driving. Now, because this goes on both sides, we actually want to do both sides at once. So I'm going to go ahead and put the screw on this side to get it started. Turn it a little bit. Perhaps you can see I have just a little bit of the screw showing on this side and this side. So now when I put this piece in place, I can make sure that the hole in the brace is lining up over the screw. There, that one's in place. That one's in place. So once you have them in place, make sure you rotate this to where the broad side is facing the front. It holds just as well if the narrow side is, but for look, you want it to have the right look. You want the broad side facing out. Step 2 has you starting the arms. So the arm fits inside the brace on the outside of the leg that we have. So let's go ahead, we'll get our screw started in the right place, then we'll hold the arms up. Now remember, I said following the instructions. I didn't point out this is using the same screw that we used in the other case. So this is the 2-inch screws with the blunt end. We're not using the one with the drive point yet. Just have a little nubbin showing through. Do the one on the other side. Now, if we take a look at the shape of the arms, you'll see it has this curved area here. Obviously, that is to fit on the inside to make it more comfortable to sit. So if we look at this particular arm then will go on this side of the chair, and this arm will go on this side of the chair. The broad area is in the front, curvature in the seat area, long reach across the outside. And this is the part that we're going to line up on this screw that we just put in. This flat part is going to sit on top of the L brace and the leg that we just put on. So let's line those up. Now, because we haven't done the rear of the seat yet, it'll be important not to put this on as tight as we might when we want to get done. So we want it to be good and snug, but we need to allow some adjustment so that when we put the back on, we can move the arm up and down to where we need, and then we'll do the final adjustment in the front. All right. One arm. to the other arm. Now, we're ready to move on to the next step. The next step has us attaching the backrest to the seat. And we'll notice that the arms will screw into this brace in the mid-level. The seat will screw in to at the bottom level. And then we'll get to the final step of adding this rear brace. But first, let's finish with the seat. Okay, now before we put the seat back on, we want to make sure we look at the instructions and see which direction the screws are going to go. They're going to drive in from the outside. But another important thing is to notice here at the seat level, it's still telling us to use item G, which is the blunt end bolt. But the arm level is telling us to use H. H is the longer screw and has the drive tip on it. So this is going to be driven into the backrest because it is a longer screw. It has to go through more material and they want to make sure that it holds firmly. So the longer screws with the long tip is going to go into the seat back in this middle area. When you're prepping this, you notice I'm holding my finger over the hole because I want this to partially stick out. But you don't want to be driving so fast that you drive it into your finger. So just check it a little bit. Make sure when you get it showing that you're not driving it into your finger. So here the tip is coming through. That's just where I want it to be in order to line it up with the seat back. Okay, I have those two in. I'm going to go ahead and put the seat ones in, get them prepped. Now, once you have your items started, since we're going to do the back, and I only have one set of hands, I'm going to suggest that we flip it over and do the back lying down. So, let's put the back up here, like so. Take the chair, and remember, your arms are only screwed in on one side, so we want to use some care here. Okay, so we're going to do the back lying down. So let's do it similar to the way the chair would be. This is this chair facing up. Then the arms are going to go in like so. And I'll pull that until I can align the holes. There we go. I'm going to do the bottoms first. You'll hear that noise on my drills because I have it set lower so that I don't overdrive these components. Line the screw up on the hole. And finish driving it down with my Allen wrench. Now, I want to line my arm screws up with the arm or the backrest. So I might have to lift it just a little, looks like. Okay, that's where I want it to be. I'm going to drive those in. All right, other side. Now, I'll finish tightening off my seat ones, and then we'll move to the final brace, the rear brace here in the back. together very nicely. Good. So, final step, put on the rear brace. We have 2 more screws left that go in from the outside. Broad side is facing up, and then we'll be done. Line the brace up, the screw hole. Pressure on the outside, get it lined up. Go. Drive it in. Now, if you have a power tool and you want to use it, as I said, that's fine. If you don't have the right size bit, take one of the screws down to your local hardware store and ask for some assistance, or make sure that you choose a set that has the size that you want. But they did give us this handy dandy Allen wrench that you can use to tighten these down. And there. Now we have our first chair ready to lounge and watch the sunset. There we are. For me, one for my favorite person to sit next to and watch the sunset. I'm Steven, and you saw what I was doing. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on my channel. Let me know what you're doing. Thank you.